Welcome to Sewing Anastasia, and today we are going to go over how to gather fabric. I also wanted to let you guys know that I'll be starting up sewing classes May 16th, so if you live in the Chicagoland area, definitely let me know, shoot me over an email, and sign up for my sewing classes. Okay, so essentially gathering fabric is taking a long piece of fabric and squishing it up into a smaller piece of fabric so that it looks bunchy at the top. So I just have two scraps here. I have a little piece of fabric and I have a big long piece of fabric. So I'm going to gather this green piece of fabric into the little yellow piece of fabric. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do are 2 running stitches on the edge of your fabric that you want to put into the smaller piece of your fabric. So we'll just say this is the bodice of the dress and then this is the top edge of the skirt that we're gathering into the bodice. So you want to remember not to backstitch at the beginning or the end, which I know is generally a rule. You always backstitch. For this particular stitch though, we are not going to backstitch right now. And you want your first stitch to be 1/4 of an inch, and then your next stitch is going to be 1/4 of an inch next to that. So what we're going to do is put our sewing machine on a really long stitch. So on my industrial machine, it's a 5, and you want to go ahead and put 2 running stitches right next to each other so that way we're able to pull these threads and gather them up. So now I have my 2 rows of gathering stitches on my green fabric. Now what you want to do to gather the fabric up is take 2 of the threads on the end and pull them out at the same time. So let's take a look here at how we do this. So what you want to do is take 2 strings on the end and we're going to pull them. You want to make sure you're not trying to pull all 4 strings. So a lot of times I will just take a seam ripper or a pin and make sure I just pull the top 2 up at the same time so they're in the same position. So now what you want to do is just pull these 2 strings together. So I am going to pull my fabric down the strings, pull the strings, and keep moving my fabric like this. Okay, and just keep going. So you don't want it all to be bunched in one spot and not bunched in another. So you really want to take it and even it out. So just keep going, and I know roughly how big my yellow piece of fabric is. So once you think you have it somewhere as big as, per se, the bodice of your dress, you can stop gathering it. Look how perfectly gathered those look. So nice when you do it this way. And so now you want to take your bodice and we are going to line it up with the edge. So now basically we want to fit in this gathered strip into the whole entire piece of the yellow fabric. So now here's where I really like to use pins. So I'll put a pin in the beginning, and then what I'll do is I'll put a pin probably on a side seam, and then center front, and then side seam, and then center back, or depending where your zipper is, so that way your gathers end up even. So now you can see here's my little piece of yellow, and I have all this extra gapping up here. So now what I want to do is go back to those 2 threads again and pull them some more until it fits in there. Where did I make my 2 threads? Okay, so then go ahead and pull some more and gather it up. Okay, so now we are looking pretty good and flat here on the edge. So I'm just gonna even it out, make sure your gathers are all even. You don't want any uneven gathers, otherwise it'll look funny when you're wearing it. So go ahead and just put a few more pins in there. Perfect. So now we have it nice and secured into this top bodice. So there's the bodice, there's the other side of the skirt. So now we are going to head and sew this. And this time we are going to use a back stitch in the beginning and the end so that our gathers do not go anywhere. Okay, so now you can see we have our gathered piece into our little yellow piece. So we took that big piece of green and we put it into that little piece of yellow. So now we're going to go ahead and stitch this up and see how it looks. Okay, so just remember to turn back your stitch length to normal. So for me it's 2.5. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my dial here back to 2.5. And now we can go ahead and put that permanent stitch in. So 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitch. We're good. Let's check it out. So now you can see it looks like I basically have 3 stitches on the side. It's because 2 are those running stitches and 1's my permanent stitch. And then on this side we just have 1 permanent stitch. So now when you go ahead and open this up, you can see how awesome that looks with the gathering. So you're gonna have a little stitch though maybe hanging out below this. So we want to go ahead and seam rip that out. Just go ahead and start at the end. You could pull that gathering stitch, but you really risk putting holes in your fabric, which we don't want to do since we spent all that time gathering that fabric. So it comes out really easy. You can see. Just gonna keep going. Okay. I'm gonna cheat and pull the end. And then that other thread on the bottom will just pop right out, and now we are nice and clean on the front. So now you can see that we have our piece of fabric with a little piece of gathered fabric in it. So we successfully gathered some fabric, and I don't know about you, but this looks like a little mini Barbie dress to me. So yeah, if you have any questions on how to gather fabric or different types of fabric, feel free to leave it in the comments below or reach out to me at anastasiachatzka@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, which is hopefully right away. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Sew Anastasia today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give our video a thumbs up, and follow us on Instagram, Sew Anastasia, S-E-W Anastasia. So I post a lot of photos on there of what we do in the studio, and our sewing class is coming up. So don't miss our sewing classes. If you live in Chicago, shoot me an email so you can get those details, because they're gonna be so fun, and we only have 9 spots available.